Here's something that's almost impossible to imagine. We are all basically halfway through 2026. And so I'd love to say something kind of about that before we jump into anything else, because the halfway point, right, it is not just a milestone. I want us to see it as a mirror. And most pastors, most church leaders I talk to at this point in the year, they are not looking at the halfway point as deeply as we might need to. Most of us are looking forward. Like our calendar is open, the fall series is being finalized, budget projections are on the screen, and I get all of that, right? In fact, that instinct makes a lot of sense. You're a builder, you're a planner, and forward momentum is part of your wiring. But I want to suggest that moving forward right now, without doing one thing first, is how you will end up repeating the first half of the year into the second half. And that one thing is just simply this: naming what you are carrying. That's it. Name what you're carrying. Here's what I hear so much from pastors at the midpoint of the year. And it's not really burnout, it's not confusion about the vision, the mission, whatever. What I usually hear is that there's a weight that the first half of the year has kind of built. And it's kind of a specific, unresolved, kind of never quite got around to addressing it kind of weight that has just been accumulating, really, if we're honest, since January. There's budget tensions that got managed instead of resolved. You move some numbers around to make everything work. Maybe you had a conversation that felt like a resolution, but it really was just a delay. And now that you kind of look back on it, and now that tension is just kind of still sitting there, right? It's been building for 6 months, and it is now shaping a lot about how you're going to respond in the fall. But it's kind of subtle. The staff dynamic that everyone in your team can feel, but nobody has directly put on the table and talked about. The every week that goes by, without that conversation that needs to be had, it's costing you something. Costing you creativity, costing you trust. We've talked about that already in a previous podcast. The willingness of people to kind of bring their real thinking to the room, like an attendance plateau that just keeps surfacing in the back of your mind when you're trying to plan. Like you do not bring it up in every meeting. In fact, you probably don't bring it up in most meetings, but it is there, right? All these things that are kind of building up. And so the gap between what you said 2026 was going to look like, and now halfway through the year, what it actually is looking like, right? There may be a gap there. And it may be one area there's a gap, or maybe several of them, right? And here's the deal. Like you're not really sure whether that gap is a communication problem, strategy problem, or something else entirely. And none of that is explosive. Like this isn't a nuclear conversation, right? None of it is going to kind of show up in a major crisis. And really, that's why I think it so often just remains unnamed. So here's what I think most pastors, we just don't account for. And this is the thing that I would love to kind of sit on today with you. Unnamed pressure does not sit quietly while you keep leading. Okay, just because the pressure is unnamed doesn't mean it's not affecting you. It moves with you, and it's operating inside of your leadership right now, and it's making decisions ahead of you. Like think about it. These unnamed pressures, it calibrates your tolerance for risk. So when an opportunity comes up that is worth taking, something inside of you pulls back a little more than it maybe should, because the pressure that you haven't named underneath the surface is telling you very quietly that you probably should be careful because of how the first 6 months have gone. Like it adjusts, right? How bold your vision language gets on a Sunday morning, right? You used to say certain things with a lot more certainty, and now you are hedging a little. Why? You may not even notice it fully, but your church does. Like that pressure that you haven't named, it determines which conversations that you would rather avoid. Like maybe there is a conversation you have been circling for 3 months, or maybe even 3 weeks, right? You know what it is. In fact, right now, you know who it is. You know what needs to happen. And you've had like 100 reasons, not to have it. And now that I just brought it up, you've added one more to it. But listen, you know this. That isn't wisdom. That's just the pressure leading you. And this is what pressure does, unnamed pressure. It shapes Which conversation do you rush through, right? Because if you don't slow down long enough to really engage with the problem, you don't have to really feel how heavy the problem is. And none of this is character stuff, right? Just so you know, right? This isn't like a character problem. It's just unnamed pressure, and it affects all of us, right? It's a sign. It's not a sign that you're weak as a leader or faithless or any of that stuff. It's really just, well, I can say it this way. I think it's an architecture problem, and the architecture solution is actually pretty straightforward. And here's kind of, I guess, the principle for it. You cannot lead what you haven't named. Things that are unnamed lead you. Things that you can name, you can lead. So what do you not lead, or what you don't lead is going to lead you. So I talk about this a lot, about the difference between kind of information and clarity. Pastors, I mean, we are not short on information. We've read all the books, and you've been to the conferences, and you know what good leadership looks like. In fact, most of you are probably fantastic leaders. But what most pastors are missing often is kind of visibility into this kind of conversation. And visibility always comes before clarity. So most pastors, they're not confused about the answer. We're really just avoiding the question, because naming that pressure is going to require admitting that it is real and it needs to be dealt with, which means sitting with the fact that it has been shaping your leadership for months without your authorization. That's an uncomfortable thing to admit. But here's the thing, you do not lead your way to clarity. You name your way to clarity. The pastors that I have worked with who have really the most leadership momentum are not the ones who are necessarily the best planners. They're really the ones who just see clearly. And they see clearly because they have developed the discipline of naming what they are carrying before it gets to start leading without them. So let me just give you a move, very practical move that you can make really today, or this week, this month. Very simple, right? Before you build anything for the fall, like before you get too far into all that planning, before you map out the series and before you finalize the budget adjustments and all the things that you're starting to look at because you're halfway through the year, I'd love for you to take, and it may be an hour, take 60 minutes. And you can do this whenever you can find the time, but make sure you find the time, okay? And so you got to block this off. I would love for you to write down every pressure that you are carrying and be very specific, right? Don't write, the finances feel hard. Okay, that's just way too vague, and you can't lead something that's vague. You need specific. So name the number, name the gap, name the conversation that you have been circling, and name the person, right? Just don't put it on your whiteboard in your office, but name it specifically. Like the specific budget problems, the specific staff issue, the specific attendance thing, the relationship tension, the unresolved vision questions, the personal depletion, whatever it may be, doubts about your own capacity or your future in the role. Like whatever it is, write it down and be as specific as you can until you can't think of anything else to write. And then here's the second step. Go back through that list and mark the pressures that have already influenced your decisions this year. And not just the ones that kind of are obvious or that you feel, but what are the ones that you have been making decisions or that you've allowed to make decisions for you ahead of you? Those are the pressures that are currently leading your church, and it's causing you to not lead your church. And really, that's an easy diagnostic to do, isn't it? And once you have it, like once you've got the complete list and you've got all the specifics around it, it puts you in a completely different position. And you haven't even really solved any of it yet, but now you have named it. And as we've said, you can't lead what you can't name. So let's name it. Let me just wrap up this conversation with this, because I really do think this matters. The back half of 2026, it is not automatically a new chapter in the life of your leadership, your staff, your church. If you just drag unnamed pressures from the spring into the fall, it just becomes the architecture of your second half. That's it. And the decisions that you're trying to make with intentionality are going to be quietly shaped by the pressures that you choose not to examine. Your fall calendar is not going to look, it may even look strategic, but your leadership isn't going to be. And you're not going to see the full cost of any of this, maybe until December. And by then, naming the pressure from the 11 months of the year is just unhelpful, and you're going to end up just doing the same thing you've always done and getting the same experience you've always gotten. And then you're going to move it into 2027 and just going to repeat it. So the halfway point in the year, it is a really critical opportunity because it creates a choice for you to lead what is carrying you or to name it and lead from the front of it. Now, I wrote about this in the blog today, so if you want to read a little bit more and get some different insight on the writing of it, please feel free to do that. Go to gavinadams.com/blog. You can read about it there, or just shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you and hear what pressures that you feel the first 6 months of the year have created for you. And if I've experienced it, I'll let you know what I did about it. Hey, it's great to talk to you, and until next time.